Hello guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome to a new week of horror movie reviews. This week is going to be Hammer movies review week. So I'm looking at three classics this week, and we're starting off this week with one of my favourites, and we're visiting one of the iconic sort of Hammer movie characters, and it's someone I've not really visited on my channel before. We're visiting Dracula, and we're looking at one of my favourite of the Dracula series that Hammer did, and it's Taste the Blood of Dracula. Now this one here is just an ordinary sort of normal kind of release of the movie. Released by Warner Brothers. There's no special editions on it, and the special features on there are minimums, like a trailer, I think. Now this is one of the sort of later part of the Hammer sort of years Dracula movies. It does star Christopher Lee as Dracula, and it has an array of amazing stars throughout the film, including incredible Ralph Bates and the incredibly sweet Peter Sallis, who you may well know as Cleggy from Last of the Summer Wine, and other stars throughout the whole film. Again, it's just like a who's who of British cinema and TV of that time. They're all in it. Roy Kinnear has got quite a large part in it, and he's a comedian that done a lot of comedy with Dick Emery and stuff like that, and he's in this. And the film starts with him, as you can see. He's like on this stagecoach where he sort of like gets mugged by these two people on there, and he gets thrown off the stagecoach with his clothes. And he's sort of stranded late at night in the middle of the woods, and he starts to hear this sort of strange screaming, which really sort of spooks him out. And we get some really, and he's really well acting in this, because he really demonstrates the power of fear, I think, in his face. And you can see the pure fear in his face, and he starts running through these woods, but he doesn't know where he's going. And we see him sort of stumbling and mumbling through the woods, and this sort of screaming noise going on. And eventually he reaches this rock area, and he falls over, and he falls down. And when he gets up and looks up, he sees Dracula, and we see Dracula straight away, pretty much 5 minutes into the film. But this is an unexpected way of seeing Dracula, because we're seeing Dracula being killed. We don't know who's killed him at this point or anything. All we see, he's got a wooden stake for his heart, and he's being killed. And then we see him with all the blood coming down his eyes. It's a very gory film, and he sort of disappears, and we're left with the remnants of this cross, his cape and his jewelry, and blood. And Roy Kinnear is watching all this in shock and fear at the same time. And then we see the blood transform into this powder, and then we get the title card, Taste the Blood of Dracula. So this is all in the first 5 minutes of the film. And then sort of Roy Kinnear seems to have gathered all this bits together, and he's kept it. And then we cut to another day, a Sunday by the looks of it, at church, and we meet our three main characters, and that they formed a little society, these sort of upper class posh, I think it's based in Victorian sort of England, and they're sort of friends, and they brought this little society, which I'll tell you about in a minute. Anyway, they're all leaving church, and one of them goes home with his daughter back to his house, and his daughter's got a boyfriend who the father doesn't like. I don't know why, it's not really explained, but he doesn't like him. I think because he's the son of his friend who's a part of this society, and they don't want them to get too close to what they're doing. Because this little society they built up is just the three of them, and it's their escapism. They go once a month to do sort of things that are wrong, like, just to escape things, but that they like to do things that are a little bit different than the normal but they can still go back to their normal lives with their sort of reputation intact. Anyway, they get home, and the father tells the daughter she's a sort of grounded, if you like. She's got to go upstairs and not to come down, and she's arguing with him, why don't you like my boyfriend, etc., etc. Anyway, she goes upstairs, and the wife tries to reason with him in their very posh and lavish house, but he's not having it. He says, no, you can send her dinner up and her supper up. She's not coming down. And don't forget, I'm going out tonight. It's the last Sunday of the month. Anyway, so he goes out in a stagecoach, and he meets up with Peter Sallis, who plays a guy called Paxman. He gets in the stagecoach too, and they drive off to pick the third guy up. And they're talking about all this sort of stuff, what they're going to do. And they end up going to sort of like the West End of London, in a very, very Victorian-like street. And they go into this really grubby looking bar. There's loads of sort of like poor people around and children outside begging for money and all this kind of things going on. It's what life was probably like back in that day with your average sort of person. And it's this really grotty, grimy pub. But they go into the back room, and in the back rooms there's this strange looking man, a sort of bored looking but with hair around the sides and back, wearing makeup, and he's to like this parlour, which is it's like a brothel, if you like a female sort of brothel where there's dancers and prostitutes and all this sort of thing. And these three men have gone there, so they're well known there at this place. So the guy takes them to this special room that he prepares for them every month, and they go there for whatever it is that they're going there. Obviously, spend time with these sort of beautiful, sort of sexy bikini dress sort of women. And so they go to their special room, and they see this dancer girl who's dancing around with a snake, and they've all got girls sort of lavished all over them and stuff like that. So they're doing whatever they want to do. So this is what their society is about. It's not really a society, because they've told their families they're going off to do charity work and stuff, but they're not. They're just going off to do sort of like wrong things like this, but on the sort of hush, the three of them. And then another character arrives into the bar, and is played by Ralph Bates, who's another great actor who has been in a few Hammer films and has been in quite a few sort of like movies and TV series and comedy shows. So he's an established actor. He's supposed to be like the son of some lord, and he thinks he can do whatever he wants. Anyway, he bursts into their room and sort of like clicks his finger, and one of the girls goes out with him. And so they asked this strange guy, the bald-headed guy, who he was. They said, well, he's Lord whoever he is, and he's rich and stuff like that, and he's into doing things like black maths and all this sort of thing. And they seem quite intrigued by it, because their little society, what they're doing now, I think they're a little bit bored of doing what they do, the same thing all the time, so they're very bored. So they're looking for something new. So they catch up with Ralph Bates, and they take him out for dinner, and they try and talk to him, say, well, look, we're looking for something a bit different. And he then tells them that he can offer them something different, but they have to sell their soul to the devil. And they're very intrigued by it. And he says, but to do this, we need to buy certain things. So he then takes them off to a shop that's run by Roy Kinnear, who we saw at the beginning of the film. And he has this, he has all the stuff from Dracula. He has his blood in the powder form, in a sort of vial. He has his cape. He has his sort of necklace and his ring. And Ralph Bates tells them, we need to buy this stuff if we're going to resurrect the Lord, the Prince of Darkness. So really, without any hesitation, they agree to buy it. And then they sort of like go off to this sort of Churchill sort of place a deserted sort of place in the middle of the forest for this ceremony with Ralph Bates. And that's all I'm going to tell you. So what's going to happen? Are they going to resurrect Dracula? Is he going to create havoc? What's going to happen to this guy's daughter when his boyfriend? Because while this is all going on, they're planning to sort of run away. But we all know Dracula and women, right? So is there going to be a storyline around those? You need to watch all this to find out. What do I think of Taste the Blood of Dracula? It's a fantastic film. It really, really is. It's definitely one of the best Dracula films in the Hammer sort of ones, because all the others are quite traditional, but this is different, and I like it because it's different, and it sort of plays on a various and variety of themes. Like it really plays on the rich and the well-off and the sort of things that they can do. I mean, because they're bored of being rich is enough for them. They're bored of that, so they need something else, and that they're even prepared to sell their souls for it. And it's kind of strange, that sort of wealth and richness of people. And you see the other side of life, when the other rich people want to be normal, like his daughter and the boyfriend, and all this sort of like, it sort of plays on many sort of like aspects of life in the Victorian time of England. And there's some wonderful characters, and it's really, really cool. And we're wanting to know if Dracula is going to come back. Is he going to revenge these people for resurrecting him, or are they going to become, a part of his sort of, worshipping them, part of Dracula's sort of family, if you like? You need to really sort of watch it. The pluses of this, the transfer is really, really nice. It's very, very vibrant, and the colours are fantastic. It does have some natural grain, and it is full screen, so it's fantastic to see it in, a really big picture. It's a great story because it takes a different line along the Dracula line, because most Dracula films are very, very similar. Dracula seems to fall in love with local girls. He turns into vampires, and the village hunt him down. It's all that kind of thing. But this is a bit different. This, like I said, it plays on a more sort of, almost a little bit like a witchcraft side of things of it, where they're performing sort of ceremonies and black masses to resurrect him and things like this. And it's just a different way of looking at the Dracula story, and it's fantastic. It's very eerie, really well shot. It's well acted as well. I mean, these Hammer films are very well acted because they have such an array of amazing stars throughout the sort of like Hammer years that have gone on to become like legendary stars. That it's when I think British horror was at its best, and it's not to be matched. It's of its era, and it is of its time. But the films age well, and I think they age well because they are sort of based before that time as well. They're always set in sort of Victorian times, but not any sort of real place. But this one has got a real place of like London, and it's really, really cool. It's really strange because it's got roads and stuff like that. So and with horse and carts and red sort of post boxes. I mean, were they around in Victorian times, or just happened to be where they can shoot it? But it's stuff like that that adds a little interest and a little charm to the film. There is some quite good gore in the film. Christopher Lee is fantastic, as well as Dracula. Fantastic. Negatives, there is none. It is a classic Hammer movie. So I'm going to score this film an awesome watch and give it a 9 out of 10. Absolutely fantastic. It's not one of my favourite Hammer films because I tend to steer clear of the sort of big kind of the classic stuff that they're known for. I try to delve into the films that are not so heard of. But this week I'm trying to look at some of the classics. So I think later I'm going to be looking at The Curse of Frankenstein. so we're going to delve in and look into that this week as well. So 9 out of 10, Taste the Blood of Dracula. Any of you seen it? If you have, let me know down below. You must have seen this. This, in the sort of 70s and 80s, was pretty much on the TV once a year, late at night. It's always on about 11 o'clock at night or something like that. And we were always allowed to stay up and watch it, because although these were quite gory and scary, but they weren't offensive, if you know what I mean. And the story was always led. The film, it's always story led, and everything else, like the gore, the action, the characters, were almost secondary to the story. And so we were allowed to watch them when we were young, and this takes me right back to watching this late at night, back when I used to live back in Stevenage. We used to sit and watch it maybe with my sister late at night, and we'd maybe catch some old horrors, and this was definitely one of them. And Taste the Blood of Dracula has stood with me in time since then. Absolutely love it. Fantastic. So that's the first review on this Hammer Week. Like I said, next one we're going to be looking at will be The Curse of Frankenstein, which stars Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee. Until then, check out some horror channels. Check out Horror Hands, Horror Geek, Man v Film, RS Designs, Pizzawell, I Am the Ice Lord, Cat Watches Horror Movies, Grumpy Andrew's Haunted House. And a massive shout out to my lad Lemon Lord. Till next time, look after yourselves, look after one another, and I really hope I'll see you all soon.